Thank you for listening to Shulchanaruchharav.com.
In today's halacha, we're going to discuss the laws involved in whether one may give a hug or a kiss to a relative. This situation happens often, especially when we have a simcha and we're encountering aunts, uncles, nephews, cousins, or even a sister that we haven't seen in a long time. And the question is, according to halacha, is it permitted for a person to hug or kiss any of these relatives? Is any physical contact permitted between these relatives? So the general halacha is that there is a biblical prohibition of leisikrav, do not come close, to have physical contact in a form of affection to a relative. And obviously hugging and kissing is a form of affection and therefore would be considered under the biblical prohibition of leisikrav, which according to the Rambam's ruling, and so is ruled in Shulchan Aruch in Even Ezer 21, is liable for lashes biblically. However, the question is asked regarding relatives that one really has absolutely no physical attraction towards them, such as an aunt or a sister. What would be the law in such a case? So we have here as well an explicit Rambam, and it's ruled in the Shulchan Aruch in chapter 21 of Hilchas Ishus in Halacha 7, and the Mechaber there writes as follows: it is forbidden to hug or kiss any of one's relatives, including one's adult sister or aunt, and the poskim add all the other relatives, an uncle, a niece, a nephew, a cousin, and the like, with exception to a father and mother or daughter and son, as we will explain. And the Mechaber continues, this prohibition applies even though there is naturally no physical attraction towards the relative, and one receives absolutely no pleasure at all from the act of hugging or kissing. As we know, some people are shy and they don't even want to kiss their aunt. They don't want to hug their aunt. They feel uncomfortable, but they feel forced and compelled. So even though there's absolutely no benefit involved, as the Mechaber writes, it is still forbidden to do so. And he writes as follows: hugging or kissing such relatives is a most shameful act, and is an act of prohibition, and is the doings of a foolish person, as one is not to bring himself in physical closeness with any relative, whether she is an adult or a child. So based on this, we have a very clear ruling in the Shulchan Aruch, and there are no poskim that argue on this. It is a unanimous ruling that it is forbidden to hug and kiss relatives, which would include even one's own sister. We will talk in a later lesson regarding, does this apply if the sister or the relative is a child, in which case there are different laws applicable, as we will see in a further halacha. We will also discuss in a further halacha the laws regarding a father and daughter and grandparents, and what is the law if the daughter is married, etc. The Igros Moshe of Moshe Feinstein was addressed a question in his day regarding this issue, in which by weddings it was very customary for relatives to hug and kiss. And Rav Moshe was asked, what is his opinion on this subject? Is it right? Is it wrong? Should it be protested? And he said as follows: those that hug and kiss relatives in which marriage is permitted between them, such as a niece or a cousin, then this is a biblical prohibition and you have to protest against their actions. But one who kisses and hugs a sister or another relative that there's no biblical prohibition in this touching, being that there is no physical attraction towards them and one can't marry them according to halacha, then it's completely usher to do so, as we said before. But this isser is only rabbinical. And therefore he says, in such a case, that one sees this happening, there's no mitzvah for him to stand and start protesting against people, especially when the chances are that they're not going to listen. And here Rav Moshe really lays it down that even though we see, and perhaps even amongst religious folk, that they are lenient regarding these issues of hugging and kissing relatives, especially very close relatives such as a sister and an aunt, there's really no permission to do so. Although, once again, you are not required to protest. Based on this approach, there are rabbanim that suggest as follows: that in a situation where, for example, you're a Baal Tshuva, and you come home for Shabbos, and your sister wants to give you a hug, and if you don't give her a hug, she's not going to understand that you're doing this because of a halachic motive. She's going to be offended. So in such a case, they rule, although you're not allowed to offensively come over to her and hug her, if she comes to hug you, you don't have to push her away. And you can stand here and let her do the hug. Likewise, we have a interesting heter from Rav Yashiv and other Peiskei Manenu, in which if you haven't seen your sister in a while, then they allow shaking hands with the sister, even though in general we prohibit shaking hands with a woman. But in such a case, they say that the Chachamim only forbade actual acts of affection such as hugging and kissing, and not just acts of honor such as shaking the hand. We will elaborate on further details in this halacha in Mirz Hashem in the future sessions.